Hi guys, Elizabeth SADY with Keller Williams Plaza. Thanks for joining us today for the SADY Simple Series, Step 2, Creating Dotloop Templates. So you're going to start by signing into your Dotloop account. And once you're signed in, you're going to see that you've got this icon for templates in the upper right. We're going to select that. And as you can see, Dotloop already provides you with a personal folder that you can add different forms to that you use often and customize for yourself. You also have an inbox and then all of the other forms that are folders that have the forms in it that your brokerage provides. What we're going to do today is add additional folders for you to easily reference to specific times in the transaction in those specific forms and then customize them so it's quick and easy for when it's time to list a property. Many of those fields that you fill out the same every single time can already be populated the way that you traditionally populate them when you list a property. Same as when it's time to write a contract for a buyer. We're going to have a lot of the buyer fields filled out on those, and it'll be quick and easy to add it to a loop for yourself. So you're going to click on the Add New folder on the left, and then you're going to want to name. I often like to create one that had just a number of different dash marks on it, just to have as a placeholder and separate between my specific folders and those that are provided by the brokerage. Next, I would recommend that you have a listing docs folder. And I like to put my name in front of it just to drive home again that these are my docs and not any that are provided by the broker. So buyer docs and then contract docs. And I would make that specific to the buyer. And then another one that are contract docs that are specific to the seller. And then finally, I like to have a inspection folder, which is really quick and easy to reference inspection docs. Okay, so let's kind of order these in order that they typically happen in. And then we can get started. Okay, so when it's time to add the listing docs to what you typically list. In my business, I often, you do need to kind of take a moment and think about what kind of business do you typically do. I often worked with resale properties. And so in my listing docs folder, I would click on this templates, and then I'd go in and select which forms I would use typically for listing. So I'm going to go into where here my brokerage has provided my listing forms. I'm going to always have to have that brokerage disclosure and then one of the two exclusive right to sells, a hold harmless agreement, the COVID-19 right now, and continue on down through all of the different ones that are required by my brokerage. And then I'm going to complete every single time. Now, as we scroll down, my office has got some additional forms on here that you can use optionally when maybe it is a time in which there's going to be a shortfall or it's going to be a short sale situation. Whenever my business decision was always, I'm going to just keep the standard, the basic, the really like core forms in these folders. So it's real quick and easy for me to add over. And those times that I have special situations where maybe my client wants to sell the property as is, I'll go in to those template folders at that time and add it just kind of as a one-off. Same thing with writing a contract and such, I think you'll kind of see. So I'm going to add all of those so they just happen quickly here. And I'll go through and add again. The buyer templates will go into that buyer folder and select which ones I will commonly use for a buyer. And again, this is just where the ones I like to choose. If I like to always have an additional like typical inspections that I'm going to include on here each time, then I can go ahead and include that at this time too. So we're going to copy over just those basic buyer ones. And then I'll show you quickly too on the contracts. So, and the reason that we have two, I won't go through both of them, but the reason I have two is we've got one specific. So this first one's going to be our sellers. So I'm going to select the residential contract for sellers. And because those are going to be specific in that field at the last page that you always fill out with your name, your brokerage address, your name, your phone number, your email and such. That's why I have two different versions of the sales contract and the counter offer. Okay, so we'll click and save those. So I think you get the general idea of kind of what it is that you're going to do. Same thing with inspections. We're going to just go over and select the inspection docs that we typically fill out. So a resolution and an inspection notice, and pop those in there. Okay, So I'll show you one of the things and where I found it was most helpful are on those documents that over and over again, I constantly was going in and repopulating information, the same information time and time again. So my brokerage was kind enough, and we had already populated our brokerage name here. And then I'm going to come through, and if I know every time I am not going to keep any of the earnest money if the contract were to fall through, I would put a 0% there. If I know that each and every time I'm going to exclude this buyer from being able to go, or seller from selling someone else for 180 days, I'd fill that out. If each time I'm using the same title company or recommending using the same title company, I'm going to complete that information here. Often, I always charged 6%, as you should, for my brokerage, my commission. So I was going to go ahead and populate the 6% here. And then split 3 and 3. Now, again, when you go to list something, you can always go in here and modify. So for those specific times where maybe you're listing a high dollar property that's over $1 million, and you need to change that to reflect 5%, so it's split 2.5 and 2.5, you can always go in later and adjust this. Oh, you guys, my black spacing here, I keep deleting the fields. And you can change, obviously, the colors. I probably will want this to reflect maybe not necessarily blue and just our regular black ink. Okay, so you can continue on. As you can see here, and like I said before, we're going to populate that for 180 days. They're going to notify. Often we're a brokerage that is a part of a franchise, so I'm going to have that populated. And then I'll go ahead and populate my name here as well. So these are the times that, like, later I can go through quicker because I know I have less fields to fill out. It's just going to be that, like, listing the address, price, those kinds of things. It makes it a lot easier. So I'll save this. And then every time I add it to a property, it's going to be easier for me to just pre-populate that in and get going. So let me show you a little bit. So you would go through and fill out some of the other documents that you commonly do the same. One of the other listing documents that I always felt was really helpful to have pre-populated out with some of those fields, it's just so that it was easier and quicker for me to go through, was the seller's estimated proceeds worksheet. So if I knew that my title company that I often worked with charged a $250 closing fee, I would populate that here. I would also put my flat fee commission in here. And then any other information, any other things that would commonly be coming up. So like there's a closing protection letter. Those are different fees that you can always have populated in here, and just makes it a lot easier. Again, with your tax expiration, you can put, so we've already got January 1st here, and it's ready to go. Again, little stuff, but the less you have to enter every single time, all the better, right, guys? All right. And same with the contract docs, filling out that last page. I can't tell you the number of times, and we've pre-populated it for Keller Williams Plaza, but the number of times I was typing out the address of my brokerage for the 6th offer I wrote for my buyer. And it was like, oh man, like I'm so tired of typing this out. And it's just like another time consuming thing, especially if you're writing offers on your iPad while you're, driving to dinner with your significant other because you went and showed a property and you need to get an offer in. Those are the times where it's really helpful to have as much of this already pre-populated, and you'll be grateful. Okay, guys. So now that we've got them all kind of pre-populated with what information it is that we like, let me show you how you're going to add those to a loop. So when you create a new loop, let's say that we're going to go in and we're going to create a new loop for Beth Johns. Oops, sorry. We're going to click I'm losing my mind here a little, guys. Okay, so Beth Johns, we're going to create a new loop for them. Using our naming convention. And then when we choose our loop templates here on the Plaza, we've elected to have where you can either select these basic loops. We already have most of the generally used folder forms selected in folders for you, or you could say, I want to just go ahead and go in and select buyer only folder. So this is going to just give me the folder structure, and then it'll allow me to just populate in my customized forms with my information pre-populated in it. So then I can hit continue and creating loop. I didn't want to do that. I want to open the loop. Okay, so then here, when it opens up the loop for me, you'll see I just have my buyer, all my different folder structure here. And then I can go in and add documents. And when I click add documents and then templates, I'm able to select my specific templates and just select all, because these are the ones I'm going to use every single time, except for maybe I know that this buyer is writing a contract on a Missouri property. So I won't select that Kansas brochure because they're only going to buy a property in Missouri. I can copy those over, and then they're all ready, and that information's already pre-populated for me. Again, when it's time to write that contract, I can come over to my contract docs, and I would obviously be selecting the ones for a buyer, but then come in and just populate the ones for my buyer, and then pop it over, and then here we are. We're ready to write a contract. So hopefully you find this helpful. It was one of the ways that it was just really, really easy for me to go in and add all of my folders and all of my docs in a way that was helpful for me. Again, on the Plaza, we've really tried to simplify this at the office level, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you're with another brokerage in which they haven't set that structure up, it was always really helpful for me to just reduce the number of forms to exactly what I needed for that step of the process, to where I could be able to easily add it to my loop and get moving. Hope you guys have a great day. Thanks so much.